Chaf Aleph Amud Aleph will begin Chaf Amud Beis, 3 lines from the bottom at the end of the line. Amr v'yitzchak barada lo yehutru pasibi royes el oile regalim bilvad. This special heter we have for the pasibi royes that you can drink within these L-shaped corner boards. That's only for oile regalim. They made a special kula that we can rely on these for the oile regalim, for the people who are oile regal. Frank the Gemara, by Tanya, we learned the Brisa lo yehutru pasibi royes el gabi behema bilvad. It says that in the Brisa that this only heter is only to water the animals, to give water to the animals, not for humans. So what do you mean oil regalim? Our answer is my behema. When it says behema, what does it mean? It means behema oil regalim. It's only a heter, it's a specific heter for the animals of the oil regalim. But a person who wants to drink, metapes v'oil, metapes v'yored, he has to climb down in and out of the well in order to drink. Frag the Gemara ini, is that so? Amar Yehuda, Amar Shmuel. He says, Lo yehutru pasibi rois ela be'er ma'im chaim belvad. They only allowed the pasibi rois if it's a well with spring water, be'er ma'im chaim, but not for a collection of rainwater. Now, v'yela behema, if the heter is only for a behema, so mali chaim, mali mechud asim. What difference does it make? An animal drinks any kind of water. And so what difference does it make? Why should it have to be davke ber ma'im chaim? Our answer is bein amidid a chazil ad. We're saying that these are mechitzas. They're mechitzas only if this is considered a residential area for a person. So it has to be water that is specifically for humans. Now, they can't rely on this, but it has to be, in order to be these mechitzas, it has to be mechitzas that this is an enclosure that encloses water that's specifically for humans. Then we allow it, but even then we only allow it for behemoths, not for humans. Gufa lo yehutru pasibi rois ela behema belvat. Aval adam metapes v'oila metapes v'yored. But a person, he has to climb in and out of the well. But if the wells were too wide for a person to climb, the walls were too far from each other, he couldn't reach from one to the other in order to be able to brace himself against the walls and climb in and out, then we say it's mutter for a person as well. Now, in those circumstances, a person can draw water for himself. And a person should not draw the water and while holding the bucket, give the animal to drink. But he can draw the water and pour it in front of the animal. Or, as we learned previously, the Ritva says he can put the bucket down and have the animal drink from the bucket, but he shouldn't be holding it. So, and the animal drinks on its own. Then what have they accomplished with the pasibi rois if you're saying that they cannot give the animal to drink while he's holding the container? What do you mean? That you can draw water, and you can draw the water from the well, otherwise you wouldn't be able to draw the water. Elam, and he went to say is what he meant to say is that you can't give the animal to drink while you're holding the container. Then why was there a requirement for Rosh V'Rubai? Why does the animal have to be Rosh V'Rubai within the enclosure if you're not holding the bucket, you're just putting the water in front of it? You're not going to come to carry it out anyway. So why was it a requirement that the animal has to be Rosh V'Rubai inside? We're talking in a specific case over here of an avos that's in Rishus Harabim. The trough is in the Rishus Harabim, and one end of the trough is within the Bein Apasim. So it's not in that case where we say that you cannot be holding the bucket. Like we learned previously, that in that type of a case, we're afraid that the trough is partially outside, partially inside. This is within the enclosure, but this area here is the Rishus Harabim, and the animal's drinking here. We're afraid if he's holding the bucket, you might see that this needs repair. You might take the bucket, put it down, repair this, and then bring it back in, and it'll be machnes from the Rishus Harabim to the Rishus Yachad. That's why we say that he cannot be holding the bucket even if the animal is Rosh Ruba Vifnim. Amar Rav Yirmei bar Abba Amar Rav Ein Borgenen beBavel. There are no borgenen in Bavel, no huts. What are borgenen? A person is restricted on Shabbos. He cannot go out outside of his tchum. So from his dwelling where he made his shvis on the onset of Shabbos, from the city that he is in, he can't go beyond that area, beyond the city, beyond the shisa, more than 2,000 amas. However, if there are even huts, even small houses or huts within 70 2/3 amma of the city limits, we extend, so to speak, the city limits, and we measure the 2,000 amas from those huts. So Rav Yirmei bar Abba said in the name of Rav, there's no din of burgen in Bavel. This halacha of the huts does not apply in Bavel. In Bavel, we don't say that the city limit or the Makom Shis is extended by the huts. Now, the huts can extend the limit if it's within 72 2/3 amma of the city, and even if there's a chain of huts, another hut within 70 and 2/3 of that hut, and so forth, until the last hut where there is nothing else within 70 and 2/3 ammas of it, that's where you measure the 2,000 amas of the tchum. But in Bavel, we don't apply this din of borgenen. V'loi pasa birois b'chutz la'aretz, and the din of pasa birois that we just mentioned, that we were discussing, that the boards around the L-shaped posts at the corners around the wells, that does not apply in chutz la'aretz. It only applies in Eretz Yisrael and in Bavel. So the Gemara explains. Borgenen lo beBavel loy. We don't have the din of borgen in Bavel. It doesn't apply to shlichi bitki because there are a lot of floods over there. So therefore, these huts are not significant because they can get washed away and they don't stand. They don't have any kind of permanence. So we can't consider it to be part of the city, an extension of the city, real dwellings. And pasa birois b'chutz la'aretz loy. And we don't apply the din of pasa birois in chutz la'aretz, the loy shlichim Masechet, because it's not common to have yeshivas over there. They're only matir the pasa birois for the tzarech mitzvah, so either for the oilei regalim or for the talmidim that travel from yeshiva to yeshiva or from their homes to yeshiva. Since in chutz la'aretz neither of those apply, so the din of pasa birois does not apply either. Aval ifcha avdina, but the reverse does apply, meaning that the borgenen applies in chutz la'aretz and pasa birois applies in Bavel, because they are not so common to have floods in chutz la'aretz, and it is common to have yeshivas in Bavel, so pasa birois applies in Bavel. Ika damri, another version is damri amar Rav Yirmei bar Abba amar Rav ein borgenim upasa birois loy beBavel v'loy b'chutz la'aretz. According to this version, the din of borgenen and pasa birois doesn't apply. Neither of them applies, not in Bavel nor in chutz la'aretz. Borgenen beBavel loy d'shchichi be'abitki. Like we said, the borgen in the huts in Bavel doesn't apply because floods are common. B'chutz la'aretz nami loy d'shchichi genavi. And chutz la'aretz it also doesn't apply because it's common to have genavim, and therefore, if that's the case, the people will steal from the huts, and therefore the huts are not considered to be a yishuv, part of the yishuv. It's not safe. So therefore, it doesn't apply. It doesn't apply in Bavel and not in chutz la'aretz. Pasa birois beBavel loy d'shchicha mayim. Pasa birois in Bavel doesn't apply. Now, even though they do have yeshivas, but it's not necessary because there are many streams, there are sources of waters. It was not necessary to make this takana, to make this kula for in Bavel, because they have sources of water. It's only in Eretz Yisrael where they do not have all these sources of water. And b'chutz la'aretz nami loy d'shchichi nami loy d'loy shchichi Masechet, and chutz la'aretz it doesn't apply because they don't have yeshivas, so it's not the tzorech mitzvah to travel, and therefore it doesn't apply borgen in chutz la'aretz either. Omer Chisalamari Breder of Huna Breder of Yerme Baraba. He said, Amri, they say, Asismi Barnish, Lebankinis and Daniel. They say that you came from the town of Barnish to the shul, where the shul was built on the place they said that Daniel Dovid. The Havatlasa Parse, that is a distance of 3 parsois, which is a distance which is far in excess of the 2,000 amas, of the Tchum Shabbos. So a parsa is 4 mil, and a mil is 2,000 amas, so that's 8,000 amas, and this is 3 parsois. It's 24,000 amas. It's far in excess of the Tchum Shabbos. Amai Semichta, what are you relying on to go that distance? Aburgin and Nahatz. Ha'amar Avu Mishmei Derav, Ein Burgin and Bebavel. We learned that there is the Hatz, there's no din of Burgin and in Bavel, so how can you rely on that? So, Nafak V'achvele Hanu Amasvasa. So when he went out and showed him that there were ruins, that between the 2 areas there were ruins. So they were not inhabited, but the walls of some of the houses were intact. The Mivlan B'Shivanama V'Shirayim, and they were within 72/3 amas of the city and within each other. So you didn't have a stretch where there was completely desolate. And these ruins can serve as Burgin. Even though there's no Burgin in Bavel, that's because the flood sweeps them away. But these were actual built houses, and these were cities and built houses. They were ruins. They're not inhabited, but some of them were still intact. So they can serve, even in Bavel, these can serve as Burgin. So learned a drasha that he darshan l'chol techlarisi kates, that every goal there's a limit to it. But Rechava mitzvasecha ma'od. But your mitzvah, the Torah, is beyond all that. It's very, very broad. Every other thing, there's a limit. In the Torah, it's much broader and much beyond any of these limitations that exist by the other things, any other goal. So So this idea that the Torah is so rachav, the vastness of the Torah, Dovid Melech said it, and he didn't define what is the limit, so to speak, of the Torah. Omer Eiv v'loy Pirsha, and Eiv as well mentioned but didn't explain it. Omer Yecheskel v'loy Pirsha, and Yecheskel as well. Ad Shebo Zechariah ben Ido Pirsha, until Zechariah came and he explained it. Omer Dovid v'loy Pirsha, Dovid mentioned it and he didn't explain it. Where do we see the Chsiv l'chol techlarisi kates rechav mitzvasech moed, that the Torah, how great, how vast the Torah is, but he didn't define it. Amr Yevalei Pirsha also didn't explain the Chsiv Aruka Me'eretz Mida. The Torah is longer than the world, Urachava Miniyam, and wider than the seas. But again, he didn't define it. Amr Yecheskel Loi Pirsha the Chsiv Vayifesaisa Lefonai. Yecheskel, he also mentioned, he didn't define it. He said he spread the Megillah of the Torah Pshalpeh in front of me, V'iksu upon V'acha. Because of the Kinim Vahegavehi. It was written on the front and the back, and it was written on it, this Kinim Vahegavehi. So the Gemara will explain now what these expressions are. Kinim, that's like Kina, like Lamentations, like Kinos and Tishim of Kina. So this is Purana Shal Tzadikim B'Olam Hazeh. This is a reference to the suffering that Tzadikim had B'Olam Hazeh. That's the Kina. V'cheinu oimer Kina hi v'kaina nuha. And it says that we see that Kina is a reference to talking about a tragedy. It talks about the downfall of Mitzrayim. Kina v'kaina nuha. V'hega, what is V'hega referring to? So that's V'hega is rejoicing. What's it referring to? Zumatan schor shel tzadikim lasad lovei. This is a reference to the reward that tzadikim will have in Olam Haba. V'cheinu oimer. It says Ale higoyin b'china. Ale higoyin b'china. Ale higoyin. So Hegi is higoyin. So it's talking about singing, and Ale higoyin b'china. So singing together with a harp. So we see that Hegi is referring to rejoicing. Alehi goin bechina. Vehi, what's that referring to? Zu paronus osin shel rishayim lasid v'avay. Vehi is like oivei, ve'ai, like a crafts. That's referring to the paronus of rishayim lasid lava, the punishment that the rishayim will get in olam haba. V'chein hu oimer, and that's what it says. Hoiva al hoiva tova. It says hoiva al hoiva tova. The tragedy and the calamity upon calamity that's going to come. So that's Yechezkel Novi was talking about the Nevuah and the destruction of Yerushalayim. So this is that lashon of vehi hoive hoive tovai. So, but in any event, there was no definition, not in any of them, about how vast the Torah is, to try to define the vastness of the Torah. Until Zachariah ben Ida appears, until Zachariah the Navi came in and explained it, and he said, "Where do we see?" It says, "They'll see Vayemer Ma'ata." So Hashem said to him, "What do you see? What do you see in your nevuah?" Vaymar, he said, "Vaymar ani roya Megillah Hafa." He said, "I see a folded Megillah. Arba esrim ba'ama." So arba arka rather esrim ba'ama v'rachba esrim ba'ama. The arka, the length is 20, and the width is 10. So there's Megillah, folded Megillah, and the arka, the length was 20 amas, and the width was 10. And as Rashi explains, we're talking about the amas of the Rebbeinu Shalom. So we'll see in our terms, Kiviyachal, the Amma of Rebbeinu Shalom, we'll see in our measurements, in our terms, what does that equate to. So now it says it was folded. When you open it up and spread it up, so it was folded, so it was 20 by 10. So when you now open it up, it becomes 20 by 20. So now it becomes 20 by 20, and it was written on the front and the back. So when you split it, so you have writing on one side, on front and back, so you split it, so now you have two sides, and kamahava, arban be'esrin. And now you have a Megillah of 20 by 40. So that's a total of 800, 20 by 40 is 800 square amas. Uksiv, and it says in the pasuk, midadad b'sholem mayim, so it says that who measured. So the pasuk is saying about the Rebbeinu Shalom, the greatness of the Rebbeinu Shalom. So it says, Mi modad b'sholem mayim, who measured with his fist the sea. He measured the sea with his fist. Ushamayim bezeres tikain, and the heaven, the shamayim, he said he measured it with a zeres. Now zeres is a half an amma. So a half an amma is a zeres, a half an amma. We're talking about square ammas. A half an amma by a half an amma is a quarter square ammas. So when you have an area which is a half an amma by half an amma, if it's a half, the total area of this, so it's a quarter square, a square amma, it's a quarter of a square amma. So if it's a half an amma length and width, the area of it is a quarter square. Now we said before that the Torah, that the Megillah, once we unfold it and split it, it's 800 square ammas. Now we're talking about the ammas of the Rebbeinu Shalom. Now the Shamayim, it says he measured it with his fist. Shamayim bezeres tiken. So therefore, that's a quarter of an amma, which means that the entire bria is a 1/3,200th of the Torah. The Torah is 800 square ammas of the ammas of Rebbeinu Shalom. The Shemayim V'aretz is a zeres, is a half an amma, which square is a quarter. That means the entire Shemayim V'aretz is only 1 out of 3,200. That's a quarter of an amma, so 4 times 800 is 1 out of 3,200 of the Torah. Bomer of Chista, Dorish Marim Barav, my Dirshu, it says, V'neish, Neidudai, Tainim, there are 2 pots of figs, Muadim, Alifnei, Heichal Hashem, that were prepared in front of the Heichal Hashem. Hadu, the Echad, Tainim, Tivais Ma'oid, Betaina, that one fig contained very good figs, Betaina, Abu Habakurais, which the very good figs, like the figs that ripen first. Hadu, the Echad, Tainim, Ros Ma'oid, and the other one contained one which were very inferior, which couldn't be eaten because they were so bad. So, what's this a reference to? It refers to Tzadikim Gemor. That's Rishayim Gemor. Vishem Timer, maybe you'll say that the Rishayim Gemor is for follow. Maybe you'll say maybe you say there's no hope and they have no hechatimsa of any Yeshua. Talmud Loimar Hadudoim Nos L'Reach. Dudoim will give off a good smell, a fragrance. So even though these the Duad Echos Tainim Rois Moed, but Hadudoim, the pots will eventually give off a good smell. Not only the tzaddikim, even the Rishayim, wherein the Duad Roa Moed, but they do have hope. They do have potential. Ultimately, they will give a reach toiv.